Hello and welcome back once again. We are continuing on with our Cadians. Last time we did the undercoating with the Abaddon Black, and we also did the first base coat with two of our models here, as you can see. Just a little bit of our Castellan Green, and we're going to be continuing on with that once again. If I can show it off properly there. There we are. Good old Castellan Green, and we're going to jump right into it. Again, a little bit of water mixed in with our paint, and I do kind of do most of this off camera, so don't worry too much about it as we kind of fill up our palette here. But we are going to be continuing on. Again, don't mess with the faces. You don't want to cover that, otherwise you'll have to go right back over it. We just want to get kind of all of these little bits of armor plating. I think it's technically flak armor. You want to cover that as best as possible without messing with much of anything else. Because everything else that we're going to be using is pretty much a lighter color, and it's harder to build back up from if you go darker, which is really important with the face at least, because that is going to be the lightest color of the whole thing, which is why we didn't go over it in our black, because that's going to be extra annoying. We don't want to have to fix that, so we're going to avoid it if possible. We do want to get everything else though, and make sure you get the little knee pads as well. If you're doing the new guard models, I don't think the old guard had knee pads. Maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. They definitely didn't have the rest of all this little junk, which is why I liked them so much. They were so much simpler to paint. But I do like all the little details. It makes for kind of a fun time. So we're going to power through. And just make sure we got everything here. So make sure you get kind of behind the arms. You can do it tan if you want. I kind of just like keeping it that green kind of flat color. I don't know. It's kind of hard to tell what it's meant to be, but green works. So we're gonna do that. And clean up that helmet just a little bit. And I think that's pretty decent. We're going to go ahead and move on to our next guy here. Once I finish that off. There we are. 2 more to go. Powering through. Absolutely ripping and roaring today. Again, same exact thing. Helmet, knee pads, flak armor. Very easy, very simple. Where it's going to get real wacky is when we do the face. I've got quite a few different colors, and I've got 2 washes I want to try. So I have Guilliman Flesh, and then I have Reichland Flesh Shade, and I'm not sure which one I used for my guard that the rest of my army is in. So we're kind of try out maybe both of them, depending on what results we get, because I'm not sure which one I normally use. You would think that I'd like write it down somewhere, and you know maybe remember these things if I'm doing an entire army like that. But alas, it takes a better man than me to do that sort of thing. So we're gonna figure it out. Just kind of pick and choose, but don't worry, we'll figure it. And if it's bad, we'll just go back over it and we'll try it again. No big deal. And make sure you get this chest piece in the front. Very easy to miss, especially with that kind of weapon blocking most of it. Same issue as I have with Space Marines doing the chest and stomach, just because there's always a weapon in the way. That's why I like the Sergeant so much. With the like sword and pistol kind of get up. Makes it so the chest is much easier to reach. It's wide open. There's nothing blocking it. It's perfect. It's absolutely perfect. It's my favorite thing ever. But unfortunately, we only get 1 sergeant in a squad, so can't really use and abuse that tactic too much. And moving on to our last guy here. Absolutely tearing through today. We are going to be doing our next base layer, which is, I believe, Xandri Dust. I haven't used my Xandri in quite a while. It's kind of separated a little bit. I'll show you what I mean in just a minute. But it took quite a lot of shaking to get it back to where it needed to be. I actually don't know where my vortex centrifuge is what they're technically called. I don't know where that went. It's one of those things I just kind of misplaced when I moved recently, and it sucks because that thing was great at shaking paint pots. Normally it's not an issue. I kind of use my paint often enough. It doesn't get to separate like that, but not the case. I haven't painted Imperial Guard in quite a while. But hopefully now that I am painting them again, we can continue on and do some more of it. I've got a couple of heavy weapons teams I need to paint at some point. I've also got a Tau combat patrol that I just picked up that I need to paint and assemble. So I will definitely be doing that at some point in the future. And I've still got like 3 standard Space Marine intercessors that I need to do relatively soon. Again, I've been talking about doing salamanders forever, and I really need to do them. just kind of getting the time to do it, I guess, in between all these other projects. I don't like doing too much Space Marines at a time. I like to kind of keep things split up in between them, so it's more management than anything. But I think that will be my next Space Marine project. That, and I want to do Emperor's Children. I really like the Loyalist color scheme, and I want to do the purple and gold really badly. So that's definitely going to be something we do at some point. All right, so we finished off our 5 initial dudes there. If I can close this up without peaking any audio, that would be perfect. And of course, clean off my brush, because I don't want any green mixed in with my tan. That's going to look all sorts of weird. I'll tell you what, we'll actually switch our brushes out as well. I was just using a size 2. Now I'm moving on to this nice size 0. And as stated before, Xandri dust. You can actually see on top the pigment being separated. I think this kind of stayed like that just because it's dried over. So don't stress that too much if that's the case with your paint. Hopefully it's not. But as we take a look inside here, it is nice and mixed. So we are going to go ahead and get plenty of it on our palette here. Maybe. And I think we'll start with our Sergeant first. It's kind of the easiest one to do. Generally, we're just going to apply this basically everywhere that our green isn't. It's pretty simple, pretty straightforward. And depending on which one you start with, whether you do the green or the tan first, that's going to be kind of whichever one you're using the smaller brush with. So if you find the tan more annoying to get coverage with, try doing that one first. But I like just kind of doing it in this order. It makes just a little bit more sense in my opinion. But, you know, it's your models, you paint them how you want. And again, because we're doing this on a black background, we're going to need a little bit kind of more of a second layer, a little bit more build-up. It's not impossible, it's just a little bit rough. If I had my gray anywhere close by when I did this, I might have done that as the undercoat. But I do kind of like the darkness we get with the black. So probably not. I don't know. It's more annoying one way or another. Just depending on, you know, which way you want to struggle, I guess. But we want to make sure we get all of it here underneath the legs. We want to be a little bit careful with the arms and everything, just because that's where our green is. We don't really want to go over that. But the back of the legs here are free game. Don't need to be careful at all. But we do need to be a little bit when we get around to these knee pads. And doing just fine so far. I gotta do some weird angles here. I apologize profusely, but that's the way it goes, unfortunately, as we get to the other side of the kneecap. But once we're clear, if I could keep things in frame, we're back to being able to go hog wild here, because we are back into the all tan area. And just to kind of remind you, not to be annoying or anything, but keep your paints thin. I like to clean off my brush every few kind of brush strokes. Generally, I don't fill my palette too much at a time, just to kind of let myself have that kind of physical reminder. as well as kind of making a mental note. You just don't want pigment drying up on your brush, and cleaning it off every few moments kind of helps with that. Depending on the speed you go, you can get quite a lot done before you have to kind of change things up, or kind of clean your brush off and whatnot. But I kind of take my time, so usually I'll finish like one limb and then I'll clean things off. But it's up to you. Maybe you don't care about your brushes because you're using cheap dollar store brushes like I do, and in that case, just go hog wild. But if you're using nicer brushes and you want to preserve them, definitely clean them off as much as possible. You really don't want things drying up and getting caked on. Here's where we got to be a little bit more careful. We want like the underside of this combat armor, and it's a little bit awkward kind of seeing where it begins and ends. There's also like a belt line here, so you just want to work your way around that. And moving on back to an easier part, going right here underneath the arm, everywhere that isn't green basically. And we'll do the same thing with the other arm. We do kind of have this like power gauntlet thing in the way a little bit, which does make things a little bit annoying. But as best you can, just kind of go around and under. Nothing too crazy. And you can use a bigger brush for this if you want, but it's much nicer and neater if you use a smaller one. Less mistakes that we'll have to go over in the future. So something to keep in mind, if I could turn this properly. And again, real awkward spot with this kind of stomach area. Just that thin little strip. And here's kind of the most annoying area, in my opinion. It's this neckline. It's really difficult to tell where that armor kind of ends and begins. There's like multiple different sections where it could break up, so it's just kind of up to you where you want it to be. I kind of do it right above, like I don't know how to describe it. Like right here ish is about where I see it ending. You can go a little bit higher up if you want, but that's kind of generally what I like to do. And then I imagine it just kind of goes all the way underneath this like strap there. I don't know. It's such a weird little thing, but there you go. I don't know. It's easier to point out with some of the other models, but it's just a weird spot in my opinion. That glove I'm going to leave alone. We're going to make that more of like a leather kind of thing, but this side we definitely want to finish off. I like doing the cuffs with this tan as well. You might want to do a different color. Depends to how you want to do it. I've seen it be done with brown, black, just to kind of shake things up a little bit. But I like to do the gloves brown, so I like that little bit of difference there. And going under, we're going to make sure to get the inside of the arms as best we can, just to make sure everything is nice and squared away. And we're kind of in a shaded area here, so don't stress too much about it, but you want to make sure you at least get something covering there, a one color or another. You don't want it to be gray. That's kind of the bottom line. And there we are. It's going to be a little bit of cleanup. I'll probably come back around off camera and fix this guy up entirely, but that's essentially what we're doing with our base coats. We're just going to do this 4 more times. And then after that, we're going to do all of our little details, of course, our weapons and all of that. So that's where the real fun begins. But as I refill my palette here, that's kind of the basic bottom line. Just do that over and over again. It is tedious, but man, after a certain point, it just kind of becomes mind-numbing and kind of relaxing, if that's the way you want to describe it. But I enjoy it. I enjoy it quite a lot. I want one day, as my ultimate dream, is just to have an entire guard foot soldier army, just all infantry. I think the max you can get with the new battle line rules is like, I don't know, 360. You can do 6 of each battle line unit, and I think you can have 20 in a squad. If you do Cadians, Catachans, which I think they just discontinued, for now at least, and the other one, Death Corps, I think that comes out to 360 if my math is right. That's my dream right there. And that actually almost comes out to, I think, 2,000 points even, if you do a Lord Solar with it as well. It's kind of a meme army. I don't think you would win any games, realistically. But man, that war of attrition, as you just keep rolling dice, it's something I dream of. So we're gonna eventually try to realize that goal. Of course, I won't be recording myself painting 360 guardsmen. That'll be the most tedious thing in the world. But I do want to paint a few squads, and this is the first of them, the first of many, as it was. And then, of course, I also have the guys I've painted already, which is quite numerous. I've got, I want to say, like 12-ish other shock troop squads, all of them in various stages of being painted. I do kind of this terrible thing, which I've gotten better with ever since I started recording, where I'll do batch painting, and I'll finish a majority of a unit, and then I'll get kind of bored with it. I'll move on to something else, and then I just forget to come back. So all of my guys are like at this stage, right? They'll have the green and the tan, or they'll like have their weapons partially done, and I just won't come back to them. And I'll put them up on my shelf thinking that at some point I'll remember to, and I just never do. I am actually worse than Hitler. But yeah, there you go. That's a little bit of insight into my process normally. It's a bad habit to get into. I really don't recommend it, but there you are. Excuse me. Just paint your models fully. Saves yourself a lot of heartache. I do the same thing with pretty much all of my armies. My Space Marines are kind of the worse off for it. All of them are blue. Everything I have on my shelf, and I have a lot of Space Marines. Besides my Dark Angels guys, at least, they're all blue, right? Some of them have gold trim. A majority of them have gold trim, at least. I will say that. Some of them don't. A lot of them have painted weapons. Some of them don't. Just various stages of being ignored. And it kind of breaks my heart to look at, just because I realize that I'm a failure. But someday I keep telling myself that I'll go back and finish them all up. Probably not, though. I just keep getting more stuff. The pile of shame keeps growing. I literally have an entire Tau Combat Patrol I just have not even touched yet that I bought a few days ago. And I know that's going to get done before anything else. So my poor Space Marines will have to wait another day. And as we come back, I just want to make sure that this is all nice and cleaned up. You also might be able to see, I don't know what it was with this model, whether I just used the wrong arms or what. His hand is actually split from his arm there, and I just could not get it to stay. I tried gluing it multiple times. It just did not want to go. So that's a little Easter egg for you there. If you notice that, good on you. But, it's close enough. I don't think it really matters. Especially if I'm looking at this from the tabletop, like you would never know. So we're just going to power on through and ignore it. No big deal. So I want to make sure I get this bottom of the legs here. Actually missed this entire inside of the leg as we kind of go through and clean things up. I'll do some of the cleanup off camera, but I do want to do a majority of this process with you guys. That way you can follow along. And once we get to kind of all the basing and all of those details, that's where the real fun's going to begin. Here's the awkward bit, though, and most of it's kind of shadowed, so you can't really see. I actually have to adjust my light here so I can see. Doing this inside bit here, I can see the collar there. The gun's kind of in the way. Sorry. But I can't really see the rest of it. So we're not going to worry too much about this one. I don't know. The same problem with Space Marines, right? When the rifles are in the way, it's just super annoying to paint. But I think that's good, and we'll just kind of do the back of this neckline here. Perfect. And I actually don't know if we did the neck on the other guy we just did. Might want to check that. No, I didn't, because I'm a failure. My apologies. Very easy fix though. Let's go back, and we'll need to do a second layer once this dries, but no big deal. Perfect. And I think that's a perfect stopping point. I think this is where we got the end of the last episode as well. We did 2 dudes, and then 3 of them still needed done. So, you know, that kind of works out. As always, I do want to mention I have a Patreon. If you guys enjoyed these videos and you want to see more, I highly implore you to check that out. Everything that goes into that goes right back into making videos, you know, whether it's getting new paints, new models, the whole 9 yards. So if there's certain things you want to see in the future and you want me to do them faster, that's a great way to incentivize that. Otherwise, and it's, you know, entirely unnecessary, it's just an extra thing. Feel free to like, comment, subscribe, you know, leave feedback. If you like certain things, if you dislike certain things, feel free to let me know. I take all of it to heart. If you just want to tell me that I'm bad at painting, that's fine too. I will entirely take that. Otherwise, I do want to thank you guys so very much for watching. And of course, as always, I hope to see you in the next video.